Welcome back to another episode of Life with Your Dog. I am your host, Panos and Agnostic. For today's episode, we will be covering a question coming from Gannon Fall, all the way from San Francisco, California. Thanks, guys, for listening all the way out there. And just a real quick intro to what we're going to be talking about. He says he's been enjoying listening to the podcast, and he's in the process of adopting a rescue dog. And he wanted to see, can I suggest a couple of episodes? Because if we have missed out on that critical period, that's 7 to 17 weeks, how can we build dogs' confidence and social skills? And then I asked him to be a little bit more specific. So he goes to say that we live in an apartment and we get most of our physical activity from running, walking, hiking, swimming in local city parks and surrounding Bay Area. So looking at getting a dog that's small enough to be comfortable in an apartment, with athletic and active enough to be happy with our lifestyle. Got an interview with the dog. Over the past few months, we applied for everything from Aussie Shepherds to Labs to Retriever mixes and a Formosan Taiwanese mountain dog. Long answer short, here's the question. So I guess to answer your question, I guess there's two different parts of the question here. Number one is, well, you want to be obviously getting the right dog for your lifestyle. But then number two is, well, then how do we build confidence building? Well, if we don't know the dog specifically, we don't know what we need to be working on. So I'm going to try to address that within today's episode. First and foremost, before you continue to even listen to this episode, maybe listen to episode 70, where we talk about, me and Luke were discussing how to choose a dog. And choosing a dog is an important thing so we can set the dog up for success, set you guys up for success. It may not be the best idea to get like a husky if you live in an apartment and you haven't had dogs before, so you're inexperienced. Maybe that's not the best dog for you. So you want to make sure that you're ticking all the lists. It sounds like you guys are obviously, first of all, whoever's listening to the podcast, unless you just listen to one off, is that you're obviously out there looking for information, so you already have a good sense of common sense. But you also want to make sure that you're making the right decision. So be specific about and be realistic about what you have, what your experience levels are, and all that. And that's what we talk about in that episode there. Before you get any dog, while you're looking for a dog, because you may look for a dog tomorrow and decide that you want to take that dog on. So the first thing you want to do is make sure that your house is dog proof immediately. So if your apartment, think about where the dog's going to be sleeping, where the dog's going to be going to the toilet, where do you want them to hang out when you are home, when you're not at home, so all these things. So things like, again, I don't know your apartment, I'm not sure how big it is, but it'll be nice if there's some sort of space where your dog can go to the toilet out on the balcony, I would assume. And one thing that I really do recommend, especially for apartment living, is crate training the dog. So get into crate training. You can listen to an episode we talked about that as well. But the reason why crate training is so important is because that helps with confidence building indirectly. You see, and maybe not specifically confidence building, but with setting your dog up to be happy within your household, because you don't want to get a dog that's never lived in an apartment before, and then you just leave them straight in your apartment. You go out for 8 hours, come back, and your house is like someone lit a grenade off in there. So you want to make sure that we can secure certain areas. Like, for example, there's some apartments have really, really big balconies covered from all the elements, so a dog can be quite happy to be there during the day. While you're at home, your dog can have access to be inside your house within reason. Maybe you have to set some structure and boundaries up as well before you do that. But also, you want to make sure, where's the dog going to sleep when I'm going to be sleeping? Because if you've only got a couple of seconds to create a consequence to behaviors, whether they're good or they're bad, you have to be awake and conscious enough to be able to sort that out. So if we can crate train the dog as well, that could be really handy. So definitely look into that. Take the time to assess the dog before you get him. So whatever dog that you're looking at, one thing that was a little bit confusing there, you said that you wanted maybe like a small-ish breed. Again, I hope I'm not too incorrect with trying to understand what you said. But then when you said you want a Labrador, and Australian Shepherd, like I know there can be medium to large size dogs, but maybe, like again, depending on your space, maybe a Labrador can be too higher of energy depending on the dog specifically. See, when it comes to like what breed should I get, it's really hard because you can have a litter of Labradors and one's really chilled out and the other one's super high energy, ready to go to work. So, you have to really be assessing the dog. So take the time to be with the dog. If you can do a trial period with that dog, let's just say that you go, look, I want to take the dog out for a day. Are we allowed to do that? And go for a walk to a general place that you would normally go to. Is a dog going to be reactive to different stimulus like people, bike riders, other dogs, different sounds? You want to be able to see that for yourself rather than just going with what you see in the shelter environment. Also, what you get from speaking to shelter staff and volunteers and things like that. Even if you do take that dog out, that's that dog in that current state of mind. Dogs take about 4 to 6 weeks to adapt into a new environment. So you can bring the dog home week 1, we see certain behaviors, but week 4, 5, when your dog's all psyched and comfortable with the environment, we start to see other behaviors start to manifest and come to the surface. So even taking the time to assess the dog, know that it may not be everything that you see, depending on the age as well. You take on a 5-month-old dog, but then at 8 to 10 to 12 months old, we start to see other behaviors manifest, because that may not be just learnt behaviors, but those are genetic predispositions. The Labrador will be more likely to want to chase the bird rather than focus on pulling sleds, for example. Like every dog has a specific. That was a really bad example, but you get my point, right? Hopefully. So take the time to assess the dog. Look at everything that you want. You know that you guys are higher energy individuals, that you like to do all these active activities. So you do want to make the right match, but also make sure that you have an allocated space where wherever your dog is allowed to be in your house, kind of sacrifice that space. So if there's like a spare room that has access to a balcony, and let's say it's floorboards and it's not carpeted, it can work for him to be his room. Just make sure that you're happy with the skirting boards getting destroyed and the door getting ripped off and all that sort of stuff. Toileting happening inside the room there, because it's likely to happen. Where if you can secure your space, where you have like a big exercise pen that can be butted up towards where the balcony doggy door is, where your dog can spend some time inside, not jump over the exercise pen, but go back outside. There's different ideas there that you can work on in regards to doing that. A dog that I could think of suggesting to you guys, look, I have no idea of that mountain dog that you, I did do a little bit of searching before I got onto here, the Formosan Taiwanese mountain dog. I don't know anything about that dog. By the sounds of it, sounds like a high energy dog. Looks like it'd be good at guarding and have a sense of prey drive and things like that. That may be too much for your apartment living. When we have mountain dog and then apartment maybe in the same sentence, maybe they don't kind of mix up. I could be wrong. People have Burmese mountain dogs, for example, in their apartment living, and things work out okay. But as a general, like the Aussie Shepherd, some Retriever mixes, a dog that could be really good for you guys. Two that come off the top of my head is like something like a Golden Retriever. Can be really, really good if you're looking at adopting a dog. Maybe people don't want to give up awesome Golden Retrievers, but they can be really active dogs, and they can be really friendly and really trainable within your household as well. Jack Russells can be a manageable dog in your apartment living, and they do have high energy and they like to go. If we want to see behavioral issues, we tend to see more behavioral issues from like a Jack Russell type of dog than the Golden Retriever. If you're going to see any issues with the Golden Retriever, generally you would see more like timidity rather than like aggression, where with the Jack Russell, you may see more aggression than a dog that's timid and scared and wants to run all the time. Again, just generalizations. These aren't set in concrete. So, if I was to give you like a top 2, those can be a good top 2 dogs. If you go when anything smaller, like one of the Oodle breeds, that may not be as higher energy to be able to go like hiking and running for very long distances, but that could be another option as well, because it can be really manageable within your apartment. Think something like maybe a Labradoodle. They can be pretty high energy though, but quite manageable within your space. Something like a Spoodle, if you want to go a little bit small, like a Spaniel Cross. There's other options as well. But if you wanted something more towards like the working dog style that we're looking at here, maybe you can think about those first 2 options.